Good morning, good morning, good morning. You are in the middle of the wake for the sake of something good. Good morning. You have not lived until 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 you have not lived until. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I fell in love once, I fell in love twice. I'm gonna fall in love 100,000 million times. I believe in dreams like I see the light, not just exist when I go to sleep at night. I wanna know what's real, I wanna know what's not. I'm gonna believe it and all with every little thing I got. Do you blame me? Do you blame me? Do you blame me? Do you blame me? My birth. I was early, just as I arrived. Too soon and too late. You can be late. You can't be late on other people's time, but you can always be on mine. Work is just a participation of presence. I learned the chitter-chatter as I pitter-patter my first steps to race cars making their final laps. The roaring of the engine, the drive to stay alive. I was born in a grotesque burlesque of language. My first curse word was at 11, while my dad taught me lessons on how men should act. And my first question was at 6, while my mother made classrooms out of the backs of cereal boxes. Pickpocketing my parents' philosophy. Can I copy your homework? I want to learn from the best. The best just wasn't good enough. The light is coming home. The light is coming home. Hey, the light is coming home. The light is coming home. Come on. Come on. It's time to go. Thank you. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Jess Niger. I'm a volunteer with Creative Mornings, and also I've known Sylvia for about 8 years now.
Long time.
A long time. So I'm really delighted to be having a conversation with her here today for you all. So let's just dive right in. Talk to us about your background. What inspired this song? How you found yourself in music, poetry?
Yeah. I'm from Indianapolis. Growing up here, I grew up in illiteracy, and meaning, people in my life couldn't read and write well, and coming from that, I'm a poet, and I got my start doing poetry when I was in college at IUI, and I got a degree in history there, but I was transitioning, and I was like trying to figure out my voice as a trans person, queer artist, and arts really helped me figure out who I am as a trans person, queer person, and I started doing poetry. I think vocab at the White Rabbit in Fountain Square was a huge launching pad for me, gave me the tools to perform live in front of a lot of people, and I performed a bunch of places like Prides and other types of shows and events. Never performed here, though. This is really nice.
I love that. So you just mentioned a lot of how your performance started was with discovering and transitioning, discovering your queerness, and that seems to be a big part of what your artistry is around. So what does that mean to you personally to be so vulnerable and make so much of your art sharing that with us about being queer and trans?
Yeah, I was in college, and I had a degree in history, and I was like trying to figure out like, well, I'm gay or whatever and trans, and I was like, I want to find people that look like me, or like who was there before me ancestrally, and it was really hard to find that kind of resource. And then I started digging and found a bunch of different queer artists inspired me, and then queer people throughout history even. I think activism is like the birthplace of like where I got my art start, and I'm sorry. But like, yeah, figuring out queer history to then elevate my own self as a person to think, okay, what do I want to do? What legacy do I want to leave? And then through my art, I feel like I've always gravitated towards being gentle. My music's very gentle. If you know me, I'm a really loud and silly, goofy person. But I challenge myself in finding this softness. And I think that's, yeah.
Yeah. So recently you've had a lot of writing that you've published. Looking at some of it here. I really want to talk to you about, where did these come from?
Wow.
I really want to talk to you
I should read that.
Vigil.
I'm just kidding.
Talk to me about Vigil. Tell us about the name, the inspiration, if there's a reason that you felt compelled to publish this at this time, and what inspired you.
I wrote Vigil's my newest collection I released last year. The cover is by Astro Carter. They're in Chicago, amazing artist. And I wanted to, I was going through a lot, as we all were. I feel like what's funny is I kind of want to go back to this real quick to talk about this. And so I wrote this in 2021. I was in the middle of the pandemic in 2021. I was isolated by myself, and then I get an email that's like, do you want to come to Copenhagen, Denmark, Malmo, Sweden, and perform in front of 10,000 people? And I was like, okay, slay, yeah, sure, nothing's open, I can't perform at stages, but I guess my bedroom will do for now. And so when I went there, though, it was I had to have a letter from the government to go. It was the weird travel time. And then I, during the pandemic, wanted to write a collection of poetry by a queer and transgender Hoosier that focused on joy, because we were surrounded by so much death and violence even, and the media just surrounding that a lot. And so I just wanted to create work that inspired more who do I want to be. And so that joy comes from Twirl. And then 2023, I took a break in 2022. In 2023, I was like reflecting on the pandemic and what that meant for things that we were doing, like grief. I think I was trying to run away when I was making this one. I was like, just be in a happy land of joy, and then we'll do grief later. And so the grief is later. And writing this, I was going through a personal thing. My dad is like nearing the end of his life. We've like started getting rid of like some of his things and like spending time with him. I interviewed him, like I spent hours interviewing him. And he, so with that, I was like, okay, grief, what is this thing? And then I thought about grief as a concept and gender theory and queer theory and all that, and how, because of systems that we're in, like with queer and trans artists or people, you have to, you can't just like, you can't just grieve this person that you were. And not to say that you've changed or I've changed since I pre-transition or whatever, but we all change, And so when I transitioned and after a few years, I was like, and I thought about my dead name, and I haven't, done anything to change my name or legal or whatever. And so I was just like, oh, like this like dead name that hurts is like an often thing that we hear in the trans community. And so I was like, what if I used art as a tool to like help myself heal and like forget that? And so with Vigil, it was like just grieving Seth, which is this name that I was born with. And so, it was really helpful to write that and to give that name a life, to grieve this life that I lived, like the things that changed, the family that changed, the friends that changed when I transitioned, and even the job and the life that I had. And so Vigil was like a practice for me that I was able to do, and it was really great. It was an amazing opportunity to like heal and help other trans people or queer people give therapy to themselves and figure out their healing practice. And yeah,
that's beautiful. You mentioned performing for World Pride in Copenhagen, and I feel like there's a piece from that you might want to share with us.
I'm going to perform for you now. So this piece I wrote when going there. I was like, I want to represent the transitioning or coming out of Indiana, and what does that look like? And to me, it was like, okay, let me think about my past. And so this poem is actually an ode to my first memory, which is very gay, and so slay. And it was Cher's "Believe," the song. And hearing it in the car for the first time, like as a child in the car seat. And so this is a poem to that and an ode to like transitioning and self. I'm gonna actually grab the book. If you know the song, you know the song. If you don't, I'm gonna sing a little for you and read this beautiful poem. Do you believe in life after love? I can feel something inside me say, I really don't think you're strong enough, no. My first ever memory was sitting in the back of a Chevy in my car seat, my mother driving down country roads to take us home. Screaming that song was all I can remember. Singing the questions I was too young to ever answer, but never too young to feel real. The belief that this queer and trans body was born out of the anthems of heartbreak. Or holding the seashell closer to my ear, wondering if the ocean ever sounded so real. The deal is, I have spent my life in transit, transitioning to the songs of being single and sad as my soundtrack. I was lusting recklessly, wandering on about my day of reckoning, and it was in the music, the pop music, from songs like Stay With Me to Call Me Maybe, from Time After Time to The Boy Is Mine, from Dancing on My Own to How Will I Know. I'm still too young to understand, but I'm old enough to be given a chance, so will you dance with me? and watch us turn like the tables have, lessons earned, learned, and yearned. I am a romantic, which is just kind of hopeless. But with a disenchanted diagnosis, I love this song. In order for Sylvia to live on, Seth had to go show and tell a name that never belonged to me. I believe, as Cher said, there is life after love. Seth was just my first. Like a lover I nursed in hospice and mourned. You've got this, they told me. I still scream that song, asking myself if I still believe, if I still have a chance, even when I'm in the most conscious concerts collecting all of my courage, how far I have sung these songs. I'm done with the feeling that I am just a name. I'll be driving around in a place called change. I'll be whispering the chorus one more time. I put my hand out the window and wonder, will this road take me home? Am I going the right way? How much longer? In between the hours and the songs that sung my heartstrings. The clock keeps time, but distance is mine. I am not that far away. 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 Thank you.
Woo. That was lovely. Thank you for sharing that.
That poem is available for sale over there afterwards. It's called Believe by Cher, the poem.
Okay, so as a very multi-dimensional, multifaceted artist, I'm curious, other than Cher, what are some artists that you find inspiration from?
One of my favorite poets is Ocean Vuong. He relates a lot about grief too, and I relate a lot to his being queer also, and he's just incredible. I also love, music-wise, I love movie soundtracks. I love the It Follows soundtrack. I love, it's so good. And then Caroline Polachek is a huge inspiration. I love her. I've seen her live 3 times. And I love, writing-wise also, or TV-wise, I love it has a huge resurgence right now in the pop culture lens, but Britt Marling and Zabit Manglaj, who write the OA and also The Murder at the End of the World, their new series on Hulu. I love them. They're really good storytellers and help challenge me a lot in what I want to do. Also, just like inspirations of artists of my life that are like my family, my chosen family, and I love them so much, and they give me life. And yeah, also, she's here, Public Universal friend Jody. I love her. Chrysalis was a beautiful album. Yo, Jody! I don't know who you are, but I love you! Another amazing poet I love is local poet. She's amazing. Her name's Autumn Pryor. She runs Chrysalis Writing Workshop at Dream Palace Books. She's, so talented. Love her work. I'm trying to think who else. You inspire me. I love being a contemporary with you, my friend. Ooh.
Me too.
I love, I'm inspired by, I shout out to the amazing artists I live with at the Artist Public Life Residency in Garfield Park. They're so, Greg, Kayla, Stephanie, I can name them all, but Day, oh my gosh, just incredible people I get to hang out with and talk art and talk practice and talk about rotting in the winter together. No.
Amazing. So you mentioned Ocean Vuong and relating to how he shares a lot of grief through his work. And you and I have had some conversations about this as well, but I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your work life in public health, which deals with some heavier topics as well. How do you balance that? First, tell us about the work, the nature of it, but then also how you balance that in your day-to-day life to not let that consume you.
Totally. I've worked for that since I graduated college. Shout out to Step Up Inc. They've been around for over 20 years now. I've been there for 5.5 of those years, over 5.5 now. But through my work in that, it kind of felt like I wanted to do it because it was historic in that queer people have always taken care of each other, and thinking about the recent, like the AIDS epidemic in the the 80s and 90s, and how I was like, oh, I want to be involved in some kind of way where I'm connecting with community that way. And so I started working there 5.5 years ago, and kind of became like the trans person that stepped up. And so in a good way, I was like really excited to make change. I was getting paid, you know what I mean? We're compensated, we're paying the bills, it's great. Anyways, and so I was like, yes, I'll help you. Yeah, and so, so then I started like doing, testing for HIV, STI, syphilis, and gonorrhea, chlamydia, and all those things. And then I started creating the harm reduction resources there, and then now through work, being doing a lot of work as a trans person there, there's now a trans community health work program. Shout out to Kip, I love mentoring and being a friend to you, yes. So in that work though, for so long, I was doing education about trans people to providers, doctors, nurses, whatever, and through Step Up. And then, but through that, I was also talking a lot about trans people are suffering and dying and need resources and all these things. Like I'm always having to compel this image that we are in need. And so I wanted to make art that showed, for me, as a practice of healing and leaving work every day, to show how I'm alive. That's really important for me. I think our work can, a lot of people burn out in public health after 2 years. I've been doing it a long time, but it's been an amazing opportunity to do, and to not only help my community or try to in ways, but also be able to create art that shows like my living self or how we're all living. So yeah, it's really amazing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So speaking of art that shows your living self, we've talked a lot about your writing today, and I want to explore a little bit more of that. How old were you when you started writing? Like, what's the first time you remember writing?
Oh my
and
God.
What was that experience like?
My first experience, well, I wrote in high school. I was part of a creative writing club. Shout out to Parent Meridian High School, and on the south side of Indianapolis. One of the things that was really cool about that school program that gave me a launch was writing a play for like students write plays, students direct them and act in them. It was really cool. And I wrote a play and they chose it, and I was like, oh my God, me and a little me. And it was so cool to see my stuff on a stage, like my words and stuff. So I loved it. And it was like this experience that I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here. And but there's also been like challenges too. I think like the first time I remember writing something that like challenged me a lot. I think like the question, you probably might ask it, but the question of like, what is the most challenging thing as a writer? And for me, it's not just like a recurring thing. It was an instance when I was a child and I had to write. The challenge for me was not necessarily this reoccurring thing, but something that occurred that challenged me to write for the sake of living, and I feel like I carry that now in my practice. But my mom was on disability, needed to get on disability, and she couldn't write a letter, and so I wrote the letter for her in court, and like to be given to the judge, and then had my like 5th grade teacher review it, and so. Did that, and then, but like, having to write in her voice and like do that challenged me as a way of, writing is this thing that like, it's not as accessible as it may be to a lot of people. I hear so many people using AI is the next month's conversation, but like ChatGPT to write things out, and I haven't used it yet because I'm scared, but like, trying to use writing as a practice that saves like my history, writing about other people, writing about myself is super crucial to like my legacy, but also like as a practice as a person to just exist. I think it's so important to journal. We don't have like journals. Historians don't get like journals anymore. You know what I mean? Because we're all on our phones. And it's scary. So I love this, and your handwriting is beautiful. And so when you die, there's going to be something left of you, and I hope they have access to your cloud, because if not, they have a journal. So yeah, I love how that
I love tangible secrets.
Yeah.
So
Doing great.
you mentioned you studied history in college, and you've mentioned a lot of research, history keeping, wanting to write things down to have this history to hold on to. Was that an intention when you were studying history in college, or is this just kind of lent itself to your
Yeah.
process? And also, I
Yeah.
know that you're working on a research,
Yeah.
history forward project right now, so if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, history is a huge influence of my work because I think about when I sing on the stage, what words are people gonna take with them and like write down themselves or maybe think about, and so like, and what that means for the lens that people see me as. Like some people will get to know me and see me as Sylvia, but if I'm a queer and trans artist, like there's something to be said in that, and so history, I think about like, oh, this queer and trans person in 2020 something, or said this thing, and so what does that mean? And so I always am very peculiar about like what I want to portray in history, and it helps me, challenges me as a writer to write bigger in a sense that like, don't just write something. I mean, I'm always just writing something down, but like, don't just perform something because you just want to perform it. Like, what intention is behind it? What's going to make an impact? And then, yeah, I love and projects that I'm working on right now. I was just awarded the Herbert Simon Family Creative Risk Grant, which is really cool. Thanks. And shout out to Herbert and Simon Family Foundation. And CICF, and so many amazing projects I just got to hear the other day that were part of that. And with that, I get to travel around Indiana, meeting just gay people, queer, trans people all over, and record their stories, and then do something bigger with it later that I will disclose later. But because the risk is not knowing, the creative risk, and so. And then I'm writing a play, which is going back to that like first thing I did, and research for it. But yeah, I might do an event soon talking about the historical event, like just to do a lecture on it because it's kind of cuckoo bananas. But I want to write a play on it because it's very fascinating. It has to do with like language and queer culture. It's not in Indiana, but it's in New York City. But that's as all as you're getting. Anyways.
I do have some more questions for you, but I think there's one more piece you want to
Performance, yeah. I want to perform one more time. So I've been using this loop pedal in my performances lately, if you haven't seen. It's been really fun because I'm a vocalist. I've been meeting so many amazing musicians though and working with them, and it's been a pleasure and a joy, and I love being able to like be on a track or like just work with a musician and play around. And I hope that someday my collaborator Wes, he's amazing. We get to work on a huge project recording for all of you. But this is from Vigil, this project. But I'm using this loop pedal. It's been fun, so I'm going to build the loop for you to see what that looks like. Okay. some time until letting go feels right. I have been better than this. Oh, tell me what all did I miss? 'Cause the world is a lot bigger now. Can you show me your way around? From where you're going to where you've been. When you were now and now was then. Oh, I just want to live again. Oh, I just want to live again. My first time I looked at myself in the mirror, I was in this, where I really looked at myself in the mirror, I was in the bathroom. I was making sure I looked enough for whoever saw me that day. And you see, I was a loud and funny teenage girl, but everyone saw me as Seth. I thought, this is as good as it gets. So my mom, she knocks on the bathroom door. I tell her to come in. She looks at me and she says, "You look so handsome, my son." And I look back in the mirror, and I look at myself again, and I hear her ask me, "You gonna be okay?" The first lie I ever told my mother was the first religion I ever believed in. The first lie I ever told my mother was the first religion I ever believed in. So when she asked me, "Are you gonna be okay?" I looked at her, I smiled, I lied, I said, "I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be fine." Oh, I just want to live again. Oh, I just want to live again. Oh, I just want to live again. Hey, I just want to live again. Thank you. Ooh, thank you. That's from Vigil. I feel like in my work, I'm always trying to just, even though it's queer and trans lens, I think I'm trying to write what, change and transitions look like for everyone. And so I feel like I love that piece because I feel like a lot of people can relate to it, I like explicit queer and trans things, but I love when I can write something like that where it's like, oh, it's, anyone can get that.
It's home with everyone.
Yeah.
I love that. So I was noticing in this piece, how you mentioned you remember the first time you lied, and that conversation with your mother, and there's that's kind of a through line in a lot of your work,
Yeah.
Inducing older memories from childhood, and it seems to go hand in hand with how you want to keep so much history and memories alive, and you mentioned journaling, and I'm curious, if you remember the first time you felt like an artist or like a performer.
Oh my God.
If there's a special memory there.
Well, I'm gonna cry. When I released Twirl, because my dad, he's not able to make it out, so my mom takes care of him full time. And so, but when I released Twirl, she was able to leave to go to the grocery store. She still does, from time to time, but she has to make it back and make sure he's okay. And when I released Twirl, I was like, is there any way you could come and just sit, and I'll make sure when you get there, we'll start, so that way when the show's over, you can leave. And she did, and that was the first time that any of my parents saw me perform, and it was at the Tennis Arts Hub, and there was 100 people. It was still, again, pandemic times, and it was 100 people, and I'd always wanted to my mom, she doesn't feel growing up with so much insecurity, she just never got to any point where she felt the most beautiful thing in the room. And so I when I was reading about when I was talking about the book and my dedication to her in there, and I got to give her a round of applause, and it was just this really pretty moment where as a poet and artist, we're kind of poor, and so we don't get a lot of things, but some things are claps, and that's and I love it, affirmation. And so, but with thank you. So with claps, exactly. So it feels good, and so I got to give that to my mom, and she'll hear this later when I play the recording for her, and she'll be like, "Thank you." And so I support her sometimes, but I love being able to give her flowers and love, and I feel I'm always. I think that I always try to think about the opposite. I think there's a lot of narrative around queer and trans people trying, having to escape family or being discarded by family, and I felt that too. But I kind of made my way back in to have them have the reckoning that I had, and to make them feel. When you called me family, that's what that meant. And so this means me sticking through it, even though there's some hardships with our relationships. But now we're in a really good place because we addressed all that. It's therapy. I love it.
It's really special. Speaking of these performances, you mentioned and you shared with us your piece from World Pride.
Yeah.
You've performed for United Nations Envoy on Youth. Where else would you like to see your work take you? Are there some dream projects, locations, events? Yeah,
I'd love to collaborate with visual artists or artists in general, but and I'd love to. I love my voice, how it sounds in places like galleries or museums, and so because with what you've heard, and so I'd love to do be collaborative on performing in exhibitions or galleries. I think that'd be really cool. I love doing the stage. I love opening up for artists. I feel opening up for my friends has been really fun. And I'd love to, I've got a few recordings in now. I'd love to be on, I think when I think about performing spaces, I also think about where music lives. And so I'd love streaming someday to release things like those pieces on streaming and have the time to record them. I've performed everywhere. I performed in backyards, basements, the cabaret, and then I performed everywhere. I feel and so new places are fun. I'd love to just take up space wherever people and artists feel I should take up space, and so that's pretty good.
What's the next chapter? What's this year look like for you? What are you working on? What are you most excited about right now? Things that you can share with us.
Yeah, like I talked about earlier, the Creative Risk grant I got. So if you're from wherever, Indiana, if you're watching, I'm going to Fort Wayne soon with my neighbor and friend Greg. I'm just going everywhere. If you know any really cool stories that I could interview them for a couple hours, and that'd be really cool. Looking for anyone from artists to really I love learning from I just interviewed a bunch of gay steel workers in Hammond, Indiana. Hammond! I hear the woos and I'm yeah.
Was that on purpose specifically? You sought them out that way?
Yeah, I think like when I capture the Hoosier experience, I think about the labor we put out into the world, and that means like economically too. And so with steel, like, you know, going to Gary too, like Steel City, and then also like farmers, people who work in manufacturing plants, or even like people that work in like the just anywhere. Like I'm trying to interview from the janitor to the CEO. You know, I'm trying to interview just any kind of person that's, you know, doing stuff in this or living here. Parents too, or people that are just people. And then while that's happening, and I'm like writing, and I'm like interviewing people, and I'm writing, and I'm creating like a visual sculpture art thing with that, I want to like also like write this play and just try to do that. But as far as performances, I have a few, but like I'm interested. Hit me up if you have a show and have a check. Would be great.
Money, please.
But yeah, or opportunities that you feel like would be really cool for me. That'd be great. As far as shout out to everyone here. Yeah.
I feel like we could talk for at least a few more hours, but I'll make this my
and
last
we will.
question.
Later.
We will, but they have to get to other things,
live
unfortunately.
their life, yeah.
So last thing I want to ask you, I get to see you, you know, over the last 7-8 years at the Cabaret here, various other places, and I've seen such different sides of your work. And I'm curious to hear from your perspective, how has this shaped your worldview? How is your personal perspective, your approach to this work, to life in general? How's that been shaped by being able to perform, being able to share so much of your life through your work?
It feels really cool. Feels cool. I know it's gonna, but it feels like really good, and like it feels like a true honor. I love that I'm able to create things, and I think like, oh, I think people will like this, or like, not thinking about if people will like it, but also, yes, thinking about it, because you're an audience, and I don't want to waste your time. I've been in a lot of places where people are just doing things, and I'm like, like, you know what I mean? And so I want to give a good performance, you know? And so I care about that. Anyways, I care about not wasting time. And so I want to make sure I'm making stuff that makes people like feel good or feel affirmed, and I'm so honored to have done it, and I keep doing it, and to be here. This is a huge bucket list to do a Creative Mornings for me, and then I think like just it's helped me as a person just be more kind, and like I've come from like a lot of low places, and so you know, being able to make it so far and be so respected and given a lot of love from all of you has made me feel really good, and I don't take it for granted. And I just want to keep mentoring even the future generations of, you know, queer and trans artists, or just artists in general. And it feels really good.
It's so beautiful. Sylvia, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I love you.